Everybody, this is Barbara Threecrow. I'm happy to be here today. It's a beautiful day here on Turtle Island, and all kinds of wonderful things popping around here on this land. There's murder and mayhem at night. We think it's a fisher cat or a mountain lion or even a bobcat killing rabbits, and I have to say this is not a pleasant way to go to sleep. But then we have thousands of fireflies lighting the whole land. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's beautiful. I'm happy to be here and seeing everyone out there, and I hope you enjoy what I'm going to bring to you today. I'm going to be continue reading from my book, one of my books, The Return of the Sacred Feminine and Teachings of the Grandmothers in Spirit. And we're moving forward with developing our psychic gifts. And I read a little bit of that chapter last week, and I'm going to continue now with advanced methods and the aura. So when sitting before a person, look for the aura surrounding them. take notice of any colors or heightened sensations or information you may receive. Now, the aura is a force field, energy, or shield that surrounds each of us, and even trees, animals, and plants, and the earth itself have an aura or energy field. And for those who have unusual psychic ability and are knowledgeable in the use of this gift, viewing the aura comes to them easily and naturally. But I feel everyone is born with psychic ability. Yet these gifts are not always believed or viewed as positive by everyone. Also, psychic gifts, if not used and developed, may become less available. And in the past, as in today's society, as in the past, there are those who are fearful of anything related to the paranormal, and therefore some people learn to deny or ignore these gifts. Certainly, they doubt them. While attending a Sundance ceremony years ago, I noticed how the aura of the surrounding trees was synchronized with the sun dancers. While they were singing and praying, and every time they lifted their eagle feathers high up into the air, I noticed how the aura of the trees greatly expanded upward. What this indicated to me was how humans can effectively raise the vibration and positively affect all of nature. Now, you can achieve viewing the aura by not looking directly at a person, but by squinting and holding your gaze slightly to one side of the person's head or their shoulder, or by placing a person against a light-colored wall and then dimming the lights. Now, I refer to this as the aura wall. When viewing in this manner, there should be a clear, even coloration surrounding a person. This might appear as pale blue, gray, or light green. The energy around the person should be harmonious, with no breaks in the field, and stay alert to any visual or audio information that will alert you to any sickness or negativity or imbalance. With negativity or sickness, the aura may show a darker or uneven coloration. And often in the beginning of this practice, you may notice the aura forms as a 2 to 3 inch shadow around a person. And in the beginning, specific colors may not appear. Instead, the shadow may show as pale blue-gray. The aura colors do consist of the rainbow colors that we are familiar with, and also may appear as deep blue, reds, yellow, or lavender, or a deep purple, and this depends on a person's health and or spiritual advancement. Now, during these viewing practices, information will often come as auditory projections, which may answer your questions, or visuals, which reveal brilliant colors that indicate health and balance. Now, make sure that you hold a direct focus upon what is before you. In other words, don't be looking around or blinking a lot. You might experience specific sensations in your own body that you must discern the meaning of. So be alert to any resistance or doubt that crops up in relation to what you are sensing or viewing, because the ego will often dispel psychic truth, blocking your ability and the ability of those who are new, especially to this type of psychic work. Now, never force or think what you believe should be seen or received. Instead, pay attention to sensations felt within your body, as well as the messages that come from Source. To develop the psychic self, one needs to practice being centered and aligned with the divine flow, to be balanced and open to all possibilities, void of ego, making sure to use the tools of discernment. Therefore, it is essential to practice daily so that you become adept at realizing what being centered feels like. Now, being centered is a distinct feeling where your focus and energy is held within your center, or sometimes people call it the Hara, H-A-R-A, or heart center, and not within the mind or the ego. Being in center is described as the still point, a calm, still place within ourselves, characterized as inner peace and without any internal or outside interference. It is a place that allows us the ability to align with divine flow and to open ourselves to receive through clairaudio, visionary, and sensory perception. Unconscious thoughts and ego's personal agenda may be hidden, yet can often get in the way of our success in achieving clarity or spiritual guidance, or may even disrupt our receiving healing energies. Take notes and discuss and explore all possibilities of what you have felt and what you have received with those whom you are practicing with. Clearing negativity. Now, negativity appears in many forms, some powerful in its intrusion upon our person, often experienced as a distinct physical sensation or feeling uncomfortable, for instance, or kind of feeling out of sort or unease. There are entities whose essential nature is disharmonious, and they will create havoc and imbalance in the environment, and they can bring severe physical and psychological maladies. Now, negativity is that part of creation known as the dark force, or sorcerers, like entities that are in constant battle with the light and are also part of the divine plan. They are a constant challenge to us, presenting an opportunity to choose either the dark or the light. Now, if you are adept psychically, your heightened awareness will alert you to the threat of negativity. And we are all vulnerable and susceptible to negative energies, whether we are aware of it or not. We might contemplate how negative entities, in order to be sustained, need fuel and have an insatiable hunger to be fed. And it is the food of fear, judgment, greed, and jealousy that keeps them alive and allows them to grow. Similarly, the light, in order to be sustained, needs also to be fed, but with that which is opposite of what the dark needs. Humans were given the responsibility for sustaining a harmonious and peaceful world, which is our home, and that was originally a paradise. And for centuries, shamans, holy people, used sacred tools to dispel negativity, and it was by their knowledge of ancient wisdom that they were able to keep the sacred hoop in balance. Daily prayer, ritual, and ceremony, burning sage and sweetgrass, and aligning with those of the sacred realms. These are sacred tools that today are available to us, and we can use these to empower ourselves and to manifest harmony and to dispel negative entities. It is necessary that we take responsibility with the choices we make in order to create our world as one of harmony and peace. Now, during a psychic viewing class, and I'm going to read to you here this experience I had many years ago, where I was teaching a psychic viewing the aura class. I had placed a young woman against the aura wall, and I dimmed the lights. And after a few moments of observing her, I became aware of a negative entity that appeared as a skeleton superimposed upon her. Now, it was a full skeleton that was superimposed upon her. Her physical self, she basically just disappeared, and in place of her was this skeleton. And other members of the circle had noticed this as well, and some did become concerned. I made an attempt to approach her to remove this entity, to do some energy work, and immediately there was a force that physically repelled me, and I heard this clear voice say, "Don't touch her, she's mine." Now, I was familiar with the history of this young woman who had earlier informed me that her grandmother had been a witch practicing the dark arts. The young woman had explained that upon her grandmother's death that she had continued to feel her presence. She also described how she had often felt drained and was having negative and disturbing dreams where her grandmother's presence would overwhelm her. And she described the strange phenomenon of finding pools of water under her bed and throughout the house where water would not ordinarily be found. She also mentioned that her dog would often act strange, growling at nothing in particular. And I realized when that voice said to me, "Don't touch her, she's mine," well, I backed right up. Yes, I backed right up because I was not prepared in that moment to deal with that level of darkness. So I realized that I would need some assistance in order to release this negative entity that was attached to her. It was also important that the young woman became empowered herself and participate in specific ceremonies in order to effect the removal of this spirit. So I relayed this information to her, and I described a ceremony that we would both participate in, and I assured her of our success in releasing her grandmother's spirit. Now, after performing the ceremonies of release and later that night, I was visited by a demonic entity. As I lay sleeping, I felt something grab my foot. And like I was in a hypnotic spell, I was struggling to wake up against something holding me down. And as soon as I saw the entity at the foot of my bed, I realized what was happening. And I immediately called upon the angel Gabriel, who had actually appeared in the circle when this young woman first came and asked me for help. So when I called Gabriel, the room lit up and a large white wing covered me entirely. And in an instant, the dark entity disappeared, and I was never bothered again, nor was the young woman. Having strong faith in the power of the divine light and having a powerful intention and knowing without doubt in that critical moment that I would succeed in getting the help I needed was relevant to success in eliminating this entity from that young woman. It was a very powerful experience. Again, it's sort of the knowing within oneself without a doubt that when you call upon the light or when you say a specific word, which is a power word, that you will be helped and supported. It's not a question of saying, "Oh my God, there's a demon in my room," because forget that. You're not going to get help. So it's the power within us. It's the connectedness and relationship that we have to the light, to the power of the light, that we have to have first. We have to have that initially. And that's what it is. Now I'm going to go to clairaudio. Now, clairaudio is the ability to hear the voice of spirit outside of your own physical self, or the voices of elemental spirits in nature, for instance, sounds that appear in patterns, or a group of sounds, such as music. Now, the music one might hear often appears as celestial, and is pleasing and very magical, and is often referred to as fairy music. Clairaudio ability is when you are able to hear clearly and distinctly a spirit speaking. To develop clairaudio, you must learn to pay attention to communication from animals, for instance, or birds, other than their usual sounds, for instance. Now, often spirit will create a high-pitched sound in your ear or a continuing hum. Now, I know there's people do express this, have been talking about this a lot. And so just looking at that, there are now, I guess I'd say, technology, frequency waves, energy waves, messing with our minds, stuff going on. And oftentimes you will hear a high-pitched humming that has started to affect people a lot of people more recently. Now, in my experience with the high-pitched ringing or humming in the ear has been, in a way, more in relation to the psychic tone or psychic tuning of a spirit trying to connect with you. So now we have this interference of the technology that is replicating a high-pitched tone or ringing in the ear. So there you go. So that means you have to discern. Is this a spirit or an ancestor communicating with me or trying to get my attention, or is this harp or somebody else, CERN, yeah. So this is more challenging for us, I guess you'd say, which is good. It's good because we have to, I guess we're entering into more deeper levels of developing our psychic abilities. Yeah, that's really important. So, okay, so we might think of how those spirits who are attempting to make contact are restructuring or even realigning us. You might hear that high-pitched sound in your ear, a continuing hum, and these are most often attempts to break through our increasing inability to hear guidance clearly and distinctly. We might think of how these spirits who are attempting to make contact are restructuring or realigning us, and we must practice opening. We must silence ego and also be willing to explore that which is beyond what we think we might be hearing. In other words, what I mean by that, okay, so you're hearing a high-pitched sound in your ear, your left ear, your right ear. Oftentimes it's in one specific ear with people. Maybe when you're sleeping, you hear it more that way because there's not a lot of noise or, traffic noise or daytime sounds. So then, or also, I have to say that at nighttime when we are sleeping, there's a certain time between 1 and 4 when the spirits do attempt to contact us. So you might think you're hearing just that bothersome high-pitched buzzing in your ear or high-pitched ringing in your ear. But hold on now. If you're going to find out, really, then you have to sit with it and find out. Use your discernment tool and ask, okay, is this some form of communication attempting to get my attention, or is this some bothersome phone line outside, or G something or other, whatever those things are they're putting up? I don't know. It's going to mess with things for sure, this technology. Are they messing on purpose? That's a thought. Is that what some of this technology is? To confuse the wavelengths of our communications? I'm just saying. So spirit attempting to contact us is experienced through energetic vibrations. Now here is where we often experience the supernatural, where a distinct and clear sensation, a frequency or a presence around us might be felt, for instance. Animals, trees, birds, everything has a living spirit and their own language. Yet sadly, we not only have lost the ability to hear, but we no longer trust our ability to communicate with this magical realm. Now this may very well be due to societal and religious beliefs, where generations of fear and doubt have prompted a separation from our fundamental nature and a loss of spiritual communication. Also, the ever-increasing noise of traffic, overflights, and machines such as lawnmowers, leaf blowers, and the like have filled the stillness and the once silent environment. And here's an interesting aside. Recently, ornithologists had noticed how birds during mating season have had to increase their calls in order to be heard above the din of the noise that humans are creating. Think of that. So to renew our connection, it is helpful that we spend time in nature. that we practice being present with the spiritual realm around us. It's important to learn to quiet our mind and learn to observe, listen, and be open to all possibilities. In other words, let's not create ourselves in a box here. Let's expand our awareness and our experience to all possibilities. Let's not put any limitations on ourselves. When spirit attempts contact through vibrations of a higher frequency, either audio or sensory, it is important to take notice. In other words, stop what you are doing and listen. Open all of your sensing abilities, and you can at this point ask your guides what it is they are wishing to communicate to you. Also attempt to recall any significant thoughts or feelings that occurred just prior to your receiving signals. And this is kind of an important piece here. So let's say you receive a high pitch, suddenly a high-pitched frequency comes and you hear it in your one ear. Or you feel an energy around you, or you sense something. You just have a sensation of something present or something near. Stop what you're doing. Put the vacuum cleaner down. Put the cell phone down. Stop in your tracks. Hold yourself quiet and still, and open your mind, open your sensory abilities, and seek what is going on. You have to seek it, and it's not intellectualizing, and it's not speaking out loud. In other words, it's not standing there saying, "What's going on? What the heck is going on?" Okay, that's just going to shut everything down. So that's not what I'm talking about. So seeking is reaching out your sensory capacity out, okay? Your audio and your sensory, your seeing, your viewing, and your sensory, what is around you. Reaching out. And you can think this thought: what was I just focusing on? What was I just talking about? Or what was the thought in my mind prior to receiving this signal? Okay, so these could be clues that can help you discern why the spirits are attempting to contact you, for instance. And sometimes it actually may be a signal, a type of validation even, that shows that you are being heard and that you are not alone, or that what you were questioning in your mind or focusing on, they are responding to. So that's a really good tool to use. Don't just ignore. If you want to develop your psychic abilities, that, of course, if you don't care to, then that's fine. So during a trip to a remote village in Mexico, this was years ago, I experienced what I believed was the music of the fairy. I spent a few days near an ancient site high in the mountains near Casas Grande, in a little house where there was no electricity or running water, and the people of the village were farmers. They lived simply, with no paved roads, no comforts of civilization. So when it was dark at night, when night came, it was dark, unless the moon was out, but on this particular time I was there, it was very dark. So the house and the bedroom I slept in were dark and still, and sometime during the night I was awakened. I felt a presence and sat up. I placed my feet upon the dirt floor that over the years had been pounded to a smooth surface. Yeah, those floors are beautiful. It was then that I heard all about me in the room, the sweetest sounds, which, for lack of a better word, I can only describe as music, but music of a kind not of this world, but of the celestial realm. Then all went still, and that deep silence one experiences when far away from outside civilizations returned. The silent night and sleep once again closed in upon me. Now, I have experienced that what I call the fairy music, the celestial. It's very difficult to describe. I could not replicate it at all because it is otherworldly. So how can you replicate something that is otherworldly? But I have experienced that at another time as well. And actually I was not alone, and there were several people with me, and they also heard this. curious if any of you out there listening may have had a similar experience. Now I'm going to move on to clairvoyance. A clairvoyant has the gifts of telepathy, intuitiveness, and psychic abilities. They often have the gift of second sight and may even be considered a mystic or a seer. In each of these psychic gifts, when developed, connects us to our inner receptor and those of a higher realm. Often one might have the experience of receiving psychic information as though watching a movie screen or listening to a radio that suddenly clicks on in your head and feeds you information. There is a distinct feeling that overcomes you, or you might receive specific guidance, like information, that suddenly appears in your mind, which is telepathy, which you must then discern. At that point, it is important to make sure the information is not your personal thought or your ego intruding into your thoughts. So to practice, sit across from a person, empty your mind, close your eyes, and have them ask a question that they need specific guidance with, and then pay attention to your inner vision or any thoughts that come swiftly without your prompting and that is void of influence, inner influence, outside influence, and specifically ego. So what I'm talking about here, this is a practice where you do not think of answers. Instead, answers come as a feeling response based entirely on your awareness of energy and how you experience psychic energy, which comes to us from a higher source. It is crucial to understand what exactly the process of opening to receive channeled information actually requires. Now, to develop your psychic abilities, practice sitting in nature. Close your eyes and take several deep, relaxing breaths. Become alert to the sounds around you. Now, this practice will align you with a spirit of place or object, such as a tree, a stone, or even a plant. Learn to expand your sensory perception by moving through doubt and beyond rigid boundaries, restrictions, and beliefs that generations of brainwashing have created that will basically keep you stuck in a box and prevent you from this expansion. They are limitations, and they limit our ability to experience spiritual contact. Now, first, focus specifically on one distinct sound. Also, you're sitting out in nature. Still your mind, sit quietly, take some breaths, and begin by focusing specifically on one distinct sound, such as the wind in the trees or a bird singing. Do not allow other sounds to intrude. In other words, don't shift your focus then. If you're focusing on the song of a bird, don't let the wind in the trees shift your focus from the bird song. Now again, this is a practice. You can do it though. So after a period of time, when you feel you have gained the ability to hold your focus on that one sound, switch your attention again, attuning your whole being to an entirely new sound. Hold your awareness and observe each individual sound for as long as you can without interference. And make note of any physical shift or feelings or thoughts that you receive, but allow these to drift through without interruption. Now, as you enter into deeper levels of awareness, you are training yourself to expand your psychic abilities. So this is a training, it's a process, but what it does is when you are able to hold a focus on that one sound only, and you know, that's a challenge because there are so many sounds in nature, even in our life. So it's maybe a little easier if you go out in nature. There is no interruption from people, family, dogs, machinery, mowers, blowers. Might make it a little easier. So then the next level would be to come back to that where everything is making all kinds of noise, and sit and focus. Take your breath and hone in on only one sound. Okay. Or hone in on just your heartbeat or your breath. Well, what this is doing is really developing your psychic abilities, and takes you deeper and deeper into levels where more doors will open up for you, more abilities will open for you. And achieving the state of oneness, the state of becoming one with a being of the highest frequency or an elemental nature spirit, brings us to a place of inner peace and empowerment. And also we come to recognize that there is an actual being described as the One, capital O-N-E, an omniscient, ever-present intelligence. And that is, I'm going to say, a high frequency. To do this, the first step to achieving this state is to hold a focus without being interrupted by outside interference. Bring yourself into a calm state, centered and open to absorb energetically the spiritual guidance. Make a prayerful statement that you wish to open and receive only that which is for your highest good. It is important to use this tool of discernment to understand the differences between being subjected to the ego's agenda and your imagination, as opposed to what it feels to be centered and receive clear guidance from Source. So be aware of what mode your body takes on when you're experiencing spiritual guidance, for instance. And some people say, I felt this strong urge to go there, yet I chose not to. And later I realized that if I had listened, it would have been to my benefit. Or some people say, I had this strong gut feeling. Now these experiences are premonitions, clairvoyant connections, where a guiding voice had been trying to help you, and instead you may have chosen to ignore the signal, and then later you realized your mistake. It is important to take a moment and to recall particular feelings during a time of spiritual contact. In other words, how did your body feel when you received a psychic information or some kind of a sign or a signal? In what manner was contact experienced? I'm going to go on and speak about several weeks prior to 9/11. I had become aware of an overwhelming feeling. It was heightened sensation, which I experienced as a great heaviness and a foreboding. The foreboding brought with it a distinct knowing of something about to happen. Now, although at that time I had not received an exact image, still the physical sensation was so heavy, so burdensome, that I became greatly concerned, anticipating that what was to eventually come would be something monumental. And after 9/11, there were others who expressed their having also received similar sensations and information through various psychic methods about a pending disaster. So I'm not the only one that had sensed something, because the sensing, we are beings of sensory perception. We sense things. We are connected energetically to everything. And some people are receivers. Some people are senders and receivers. Some people are more, more open to receiving the sensations and events prior to happening. Some people see a visual of the disaster. In my life experience, I receive messages. It's not a visual for me. It's the message. And sometimes it is like the sensation I'm describing, that heaviness and a foreboding. And then other times it's an actual message, clear message. So now to successfully channel spirit or guidance, one must practice shifting away from any awareness of the physical self. You have to enter a silent place, completely devoid and detached from the ego or human earthbound awareness. Now, this is a state of being which allows us to extend the web of filament or finely tuned threads, or what we might call energies, or the tendrils of conscious seeking or viewing through our audio, visionary, and or sensory abilities. So what I'm saying here is, I'm talking about the energies or the tendrils of consciousness that seeks out, reaches out, moves out into the ethers. So channeling is learning the art of advancing these sensory tools beyond our physical boundaries in order to develop the psychic arts. Now, patience is really essential, as is being alert and opening to all possibilities, as I mentioned before, because we are the only ones that shut down and close off the possibilities by our thoughts, by our thinking. If you think this is foolish or idiotic or stupid or it doesn't work and never going to work, well, that's your possibility. That's the extent of your possibility. That's what you're going to get. So in today's world, we are inundated with noise. We're overwhelmed with fear and chaos and surrounded by negativity. And it's a constant quest and pressure to better our lives according to society's rules. And what this creates is worry mud, and it blocks our natural ability to sense any subtle energetic shifts or to receive spiritual guidance. Now, spirit's guidance is often experienced as a faint drift of information that passes through our minds, and as we are continually distracted, it's often immediately forgotten. But afterwards, I've experienced this too. After the fact, I kind of reflect. I say, wait a second. I had that little message, or I had that thought, or I knew that. You see, and this is why we have to know how to be focused and pay attention to the signals and signs, right? So children are born with gifts of clairvoyance, and due to their not yet being inundated with life's pressures prevalent in the adult world, they are more attuned to the mystical realm. And over time, as they step into the adult world of technology and take on more responsibility and worries, well, they lose their psychic ability. The natural flow of spiritual guidance becomes blocked. Well, that happened to all of us, don't you think? It is also important to remove ourselves, our busy lives, from our busy lives, and to spend quiet time. Yes, guess where? In nature. And this is how we renew and how we reconnect with our natural psychic gifts. And besides, it's very healing. Spending time in nature helps form a healthy body, a mind and spiritual self, and opens us to the possibility of psychic communication and our possibly receiving spiritual guidance. Now, compared to those times when spiritual viewing was normal and considered an accepted part of life, and it was, by the way, and where with little effort one would open to receive guidance and alignment with divine knowledge, well, today's world is chaotic and distracting, and spirit will continue to reach out to us, yet we may continue to ignore the signals. Now I'm moving on now. I hope you're enjoying this. I'm enjoying reading it. I haven't read this book in at least 15 or 20 years, so I'm adding a little also to the writings, because there's some extensive information I'm giving you that I hadn't written down. So just want to let you know that. So I'm going on to these two words, receivers and senders, okay? So the psychic phenomenon and extrasensory abilities appear in many forms. Therefore, some of us may be receivers of psychic information, while others might be senders. And now a receiver is one who receives psychic information from outside sources. The outside source could be one's own guides, or one could receive information pertaining to future disasters that are broadcast upon the ethers. As well, we each have an innate inner guiding voice, known to be the wise one within us, that is capable of understanding and of knowing the proper course and action to take. Now, some refer to this inner guide as the intuitive self. Not everyone is chosen to be a receiver of information that might reveal a pending disaster, and often this type of clairvoyance can be worrisome and a very heavy burden. And that is one of the gifts that I received. I was born into that, this ability as a visionary, clairvoyant, visionary, and to receive prophecy of things. Mostly this happened in my younger years on levels that were very, very heavy. I still have that gift, and I do still receive information, and sensing things come to me about the facts or truth of things. It's sort of like, so I still receive this, the vision of things coming and things to be. So using prayer is essential, not only for the pending situation, but for the receiver as well. In other words, when I was young, very young, I didn't know what to do with this, because I would get a vision of a plane crash, for instance, and that would happen a day later or that evening, or a person's demise. I wouldn't even have to know the person. I could be just passing a person on the street, and I would get the message that person's going to die. And I've seen that happen over and over again. So this is really a burden. And what does one do with this? What do you do with this? And that was my dilemma for many years, until I realized that I'm a receiver, okay? I'm not making this happen, and I can't stop the receiving because I'm a psychic, so I can't stop it. So I receive it. Well, why am I receiving it? Okay, I'm receiving it, I felt, well, so that I can pray for those circumstances, for the best outcome, or perhaps a shift. I don't know. It's in Creator's hands and that person's agreement. But still in all, to have something, a peace, it's important, it's helpful to say the prayers. The prayers for those persons involved or the disaster. That's all I can do. I can't stop it. I can't call up the airlines and say, your plane is going to crash. I can't knock on someone's door and say, I saw that you're going to die 2 days from now. You can't do that. It's a dilemma. So I came to realize that the prayers for those circumstances are very important, and I just happen to be in the wavelength. I happen to be standing in that receiving while the wavelengths of these events are occurring. And I suppose then we have to look at, okay, what is that? What's really going on here? How can I receive a message that this man on the side of the street, who's a neighbor, he's out in his yard, this happened, he's out in his yard and I'm driving by. He's raking in his yard. And I get a message, very clear message, one of those messages that I know it's just not a stupid thought, that it's not my ego. I get the message that he's going to die. And the following week, I drive by again and I see an ambulance at his house. And yes, and then I heard a day later that he had crossed over. Okay, so what is really going on there? What is really going on when a week or so before 9/11 happened, myself and many, many others are getting this heavy, laden, burdensome feeling of something horrible that's coming, something pending. Okay, let's look at that. I'm just thinking here. Things are coming through. Okay, so, all right, let's take 9/11. So, 9/11 was a plan. It wasn't an accident. I mean, the plane just didn't go off course by accident and suddenly bang into the towers. Two planes. So there was a plan occurring. There was speaking about it. There was visualizing it. These people were visualizing it. They were speaking about it. They were planning it. All that is frequency. All that is energy, right? So as a person who is a receiver of frequencies and energies, which come as thought bombs, oftentimes, or sometimes comes like a movie running right across your face or your eye, before your eyes, you could see this movie. Some people have that ability. I've occasionally had that. So what I'm saying is, okay, the event of 9/11 was actually in preparation, and through the speaking, through the words, through the visualizations, through all that preparation was powerful frequency, powerful energy to create this 9/11 event. And I know I'm not the only one. As I said, others had picked up something heavy in the atmosphere, the ethers. They were feeling this heavy, worrisome, dark energy of something coming. Okay, so we are all people of beings and energies and frequencies. We all have the ability to sense things. We have a sensory perception. Now, if you're a very busy person, if you're a really intellectualizing type person and always thinking about things, well, you can block those abilities. Certainly you can. And some people, you may doubt it. If you're a doubter of this, you might hear something or feel something coming in your mind or whatever, or an intrusive thought or feeling, you might just throw it aside and say, oh my God, what is that? Let me get away. Okay, so I'm saying that we have these abilities. And it's up to you if you want to advance and develop these beautiful gifts, because they are beautiful gifts. And they were given to us by Creator. Okay, so, again, let me continue here. Where are we? As well, we each have an innate inner guide. Yes, no, not everyone is chosen, as I said, to be a receiver of information that may reveal a pending disaster. And often this type of clairvoyance can be worrisome and definitely a heavy burden. And I think that I have come to the conclusion of myself to use prayer. Prayer for that circumstance, and the outcome is out of my hands anyway, but I'm going to participate by praying for a best outcome or better outcome or more harmonious or peaceful intervention, whatever that is. It is out of my hands, but I've received this information, so I must do something. I can't call up the airport, like I said, or the airlines. So, yes, in all actuality, often there is nothing we can do upon receiving premonitions of pending disasters, but it is helpful that we understand and trust in the power of free will and also the power of prayer. Now, often a person is both a receiver and sender of psychic energy, and it is important to understand boundaries with these types of gifts. Now, you must be alert to the power of thought, emotion, word, and of our behavior, and to seek truth in all matters. Receiving spiritual guidance is powerful, yet how we determine to use such information will directly affect others. Therefore, the use of discretion in disclosing specific information received is vital. It is also important to use discretion when sending energy in any form for any purpose. We must be responsible in how we use our psychic gifts. Feelings of foreboding, for instance, or a nagging sense of something about to happen could indicate a pending disaster in another part of the world, such as a tsunami or an earthquake. We have all read of the ability of animals that are sensitive to earthquakes and how they become actively alarmed long before a tsunami strikes. And here's an interesting aside. In China, scientists are using earthworms to study their ability to sense earthquakes. Now, when one receives a subtle warning as a psychic message, it has often been proved to their advantage if they seriously regard these early warnings and become alert to a possible danger ahead. And here's a short little story about a woman I knew. She was driving her car in heavy traffic, and when she felt a strong message that alerted her to a pending accident, and after receiving this message, she became more alert. She slowed her car, and she was keeping a good distance from the driver in front of her. Although she was anxious, she continued on. Soon, she passed a car accident on the side of the road. Well, she felt strongly that that was not the accident she had been alerted to. In fact, what happened was further on, the car in front of her slammed into the car ahead of that, nearly causing a three-car pileup, including her. But due to her ability to listen to inner guidance, she was able to avoid that accident because she was on high alert. And also, she saw an accident on the side of the road, but she had discerned that that was not the accident that she had been alerted to. And the actual accident that she had been alerted to happened further on, but she avoided it. So, often we are unaware that we are sending messages to others, yet a person whose intention might be to contact someone by using their psychic energies can be strong enough to directly affect others. Now, information can be sent intentionally or indirectly. For instance, you might often hear from friends who exclaim how they experienced a powerful thought of you, and unknown to them, you had consciously sent them a specific message, or your own thoughts regarding them had in fact been strongly felt by them. Now, animals are also sensitive to human energies. Specifically, they are capable of discerning threatening situations in relation to their owner's safety. And when approached, an animal is sensitive to whether or not a human is a threat. Now, as an example of this, in a nearby spiritual community where many visitors come to learn how to live more spiritually conscious life, the local wild creatures wander amongst the people completely unafraid. And I have been there in this community. So the animals, the deer, the squirrels, the rabbits, everybody just walks around amongst the people. These are wild animals. So we can use our psychic ability to commune with creatures and also to receive communication from them. Now, are you interested in the practice of telepathic long-distance healing? Because that's where I'm going to go next, but I'm not going to go there right yet. I'm going to wait till next week. The practice of telepathic long-distance healing, and I do believe that I'm going to find out. Is Stone, there she is. There is Stone. Okay, I'm assuming that Stone Hobbit is going to be coming up after me, and I'm just going to say, you guys, I'm so glad to see all of you here. Amigo Joan, Angeline, Lisa, Laz, Neo, and my sister Patty, Tracy, well, how nice, and Troy, and Van. Nice to see you guys all here. And so, okay. So Stone Hobbit, I'm glad you're going to be here for her show. She has fantastic talks. I'm glad she's going to be coming up after me. And thank you so much for being here with me, you all. I hope you enjoyed it. And next week we'll go further with developing your gifts, your psychic gifts. And there's a lot more. There's a lot more here that I'm going to share with you. I'm having fun. I hope you are too. And yes, thank you, my brother Gaz, for producing me today. It's so good to see you all out here. Thank you, my sister Patty. Next week I'll bring you on. Then we can have a little chat. sister. I was thinking of that today, but don't have that. Only have 5 minutes. Thank you, Tracy. I'm glad you're here. So anyway, next week, sister, be prepared. Then we can have a little chat. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, everybody. I love you all. Good to see you all. Doksha. Tilamaya.
Thank you.